Welcome back for part 2 of Nikki Learns to Ride a Motorcycle. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, please go back and watch that one first. No spoilers.
Let's go into more about now that you had a bike that was low enough for you and lightweight enough for you and was essentially a toy is what it feels like to me, which is what you were looking for.
It is what I was looking for.
Let's talk about going back to starting off again.
Okay.
What did you first start off doing and the first things that you were mastering first?
Okay. Well, as I said before, I was actually quite frightened to just get on a motorcycle and manipulate it enough to, lean it to the right, kick the kickstand back, put my foot up on the pegs. Those are the sort of very mundane things that I struggled with at the beginning, but that didn't last very long. I did feel with this motorcycle that I could physically manhandle it. Then the next thing you and I decided to work on was really clutch management.
Yeah. More backstory is that the reason why I was so supportive of her wanting to learn to ride a motorcycle and buying her a motorcycle is the fact that she wouldn't learn how to drive a manual car years ago. She bought a car that was manual that she could not drive, she could not test drive, because she knew that she wanted to do it, and she did. We did the same thing. It took about 2 weeks, not 2 weeks of learning necessarily, but about 2 weeks after she bought it, after us practicing some and all that, she then drove it to work and then just kept doing it. Now, for those first 2 weeks, I was enjoying this nice vehicle, driving to work myself. But so that was the whole thing, is that I knew that the clutch and the shifting and giving it gas and stuff, while it was different using more of your hands than your feet, reverse from a car to a motorcycle, that I wasn't worried about. You learn to do it, and it's been great since you've been practicing all that. You've gotten better and better. It was the balance, and it was the fear, and going to it. I kept telling you this the whole process, that the only reason why you can't do this is because of you. It's your own fear, it's your own doubt doing it.
Yes.
But yeah, we worked on the friction control, and that was, you did great on my Vulcan, and not even giving it gas. You could get it moving and all that.
I could do the slow race.
Yeah, and you'd have your feet picked up. I don't think you ever got them up on the running boards, the pegs.
No.
Never did.
Not on the Vulcan.
And so going to the Honda Rebel, you did that very easily. Now, it did take us a long time before we even got 1 foot up on the peg.
That's true. I felt very unstable.
And I kept telling her that your feet dangling off the side is another reason why you're not feeling stable, because if they're up on the bike, it's more balanced than, you hanging off the side. And another thing that was always funny is you're like, my feet are off the ground so high, and I'm like, they're millimeters.
He would show me the video later, and I would see that my toe is about to drag every single time. And every once in a while, I would feel my toe catch a little pebble or something. Yeah. And if anybody is out there that is struggling with this particular aspect of learning to ride, I promise you, if you can get your feet pulled up on the pegs, it feels so much better. The stability, the connection to the motorcycle, your legs, knees touching, and no longer feeling like you're going to lean one side or the other more. That is a dramatic difference that, I just didn't. I thought he was lying to me. I thought you were lying to me.
And, that was the thing, is that a lot of it is, when you're younger learning to ride a bike, a lot of that transfers. And I did not take a motorcycle safety course. I'm not against it. It's just I didn't take one. When I first started riding it, I didn't know it existed and all that. So a lot of mine was just done because it felt like riding a bicycle. And so that's the thing we've done a lot, is like, well, I think it's this way, but I've never really thought about why I do this or why it works. But, we have watched a lot of YouTube videos. We still are. There's a lot of great teachers out there of slow speed and learning how to do this and all this. And, of course, a lot of it's clutch control and friction zone, which she's got. And we did not need to watch those, but we did anyway. We saw some people who say, like, you should try to put 1 foot up first. And we saw some people put both feet up at the same time.
Which didn't work for me.
And we experimented with it, and there for a while, both feet up kind of worked for you.
It did, but going back to my physical issues, I this is a lot of information for you guys, but I have weak hip flexors, so I have a hard time pulling my legs up, pulling my knees up from a seated position.
Yeah.
And so pulling both legs up at the same time requires me to almost throw my weight forward, and
going that slow wiggle the bike more.
It wiggled me more. So when you insisted that I try the right foot up, left foot down, after practicing that for quite some time, that became the way for me, and that is still what I do now.
This is the way.
This is the way. I have spoken.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, is that another thing about this bike is, I'm learning more and more that the Honda Rebel 250, the 2002 one you've got.
Yeah.
And maybe they did some customizations to this particular bike, but it's great for the seat height, it's great for the weight, but there's so much about it that I don't like. And one of those is the fact that the foot pegs are not even close to being underneath you or even slightly ahead of you. They're pretty far ahead. It's almost like a recliner, almost, where your feet are out. And so that was another reason why it was so hard, because not only were you going to pick your feet up, you're going to pick your feet up and throw them forward, almost like a recumbent bike, like the motion of the feet going forward and like a full pedal.
I had to remind myself to scoot back as far as I could in the seat, so that I would be able to raise my feet up and get them close to where they were supposed to be.
And that's something I would have never thought about it, but after sitting watching you and talking to you, I was like, oh yeah, that's another, my bike isn't that way. Would have never thought about that. And it took some while, but every time we go practice, once I get you past your fear, and sometimes it would take 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes for you to get back to where you were at, because you're just so scared and terrified.
And sometimes we were a week in between my last session. And yes, it took me several minutes at times.
But once you finally get your feet back up, even one foot, but especially when you got to where you would kind of do 2 feet, once you get back to, you put your both feet up, you just be back to where you were at the last time we did it. It was a lot of you going like, oh, I'm shaky. And that was the thing, is that friction zone's fine on perfectly flat ground, which does not exist in East Tennessee.
No,
the flat ground has still got a slope to it.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as flat ground. So, I kind of learned, okay, at this side of the parking lot, do this. Aim this way and do this way. And that would help some. But then we also ran into the fear of the slightest little incline down. You thought you were barreling out of control. And then you get terrified as well and grab that handful of brake constantly. And I kept telling her that the engine braking, you're in first gear, you will almost come to a stop. It'll keep you a little bit, but you'll be fine. So that was a great thing. And so I knew as soon as that I would get back and she'd get both her feet up, it'd be great. But the duck walking around and the trying to get back to it, and you just get physically exhausted just from being so nervous.
We won't talk about the nervous sweats.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I would just be so upset that it would come out of my pores, the upset that I was feeling.
Yes.
So yes, I had to work through mounting the bike, physically manipulating it side to side, getting my feet up onto the pegs, moving past just using the clutch and the friction zone to actually applying some throttle before the clutch was completely let out. That was a very good tip you gave me. To start applying a little throttle before you completely release the clutch.
And of course, the thing with this Honda Rebel, and like I said, it could be that there's something particularly wrong with this one, or it could be that all of this. But there's quite a bit of dead zone before the throttle even engages. It would turn like several millimeters. I didn't really measure, but you got to the point where you would know. You would be resting your hand where you knew right before it would start going. It was almost like a friction zone for the throttle, like the clutch would have. Like you knew you had to turn it this much before it even start to get going.
I could feel it engage at that point.
Yet another thing that when we'd finally talk back and forth about it, I was like, let me look, let me see, let me get off, let me try it again. And I was like, oh yeah, that is bad. I don't like this bike,
But, for what it's for,
yes,
I would recommend the Honda Rebel.
Oh yeah.
I would.
Yeah.
I can already agree with so many things that you're saying, obviously, that there are downsides to this motorcycle. And
And maybe it's just a particular one. Maybe it was dropped a lot. Maybe it was modified some and all that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But I do have to kind of prime the throttle to a certain position so that I know that the next twist I make is actually going to catch.
Yeah.
And I have just recently even gotten to the point where you've helped me shift gears for the first time.
You're jumping. You're jumping way ahead because we've had several weekends and throughout the days. You've jumped past the fact of, hey, I'm going more than 5 feet. The issue with you is you'd be so excited that you went 5 feet, 10 feet with your feet up. You would stop. I'm like, what's wrong? You're like, I'm happy I did it. I'm like, quit that.
There was also that. There's also a reason to that as well, which as I kind of had to do some internal self-reflection.
Yeah, it's very this whole experience has been very deep of like therapy almost. It
almost is therapy, just trying to realize that I was actually so scared that when I got the bike to move, especially when I started using a little throttle and I had both my feet up, that all I could think about is, when can I stop?
Yes.
And how am I going to stop safely?
Yeah, and there was a few. There was a few. Wheel was turned a little bit, grabbed too much brake, went to the side, but you caught this time. I can
catch it, yes.
And of course, I was worried about your hips and all that, and that was the thing. Is most of the time we'd have to quit just because you were exhausted, but we'd get a little bit, and that was the thing, is that I just wanted to see a little bit of progress and not sliding back. And that was the thing, you kept progressing, but it was also funny that the better you got at the basic stuff, the more scared you got. I'm like, you shouldn't be more scared
but
now.
I was scared about what was coming next.
Yes, and that was the thing, is that she was you were afraid that you would have to learn something new. I'm like, but that's a good thing, because all this basic stuff, you'll always use the friction zone. You'll always use picking your feet up. You'll always use, try and keep the bike straight. You just build upon it. So, one day we were down in a smaller parking lot, and I got you to turn. For the first time. I'm like, you just a little bit. And of course, a lot of the issue was the fact that you felt like you were flying out of control and you left the throttle a lot. I'm like, you need to get a little throttle just to keep you more steady. And then, of course, when you're going slow, a lot of times you start to turn the wheel a little bit, and then you feel a little shaky and you jerk it right back straight again. I'm like, you're never going to go anywhere if you're jerking it back straight. But that one day, you did a slight turn. And I think that same day, you end up doing 5 turns in a row.
I made one big giant,
like a Q almost. Yes. Because you stopped it. And it
was in a parking lot that was one of the smallest parking lots that we practiced in, but it was basically a large square.
Well, rectangle.
A rectangle. Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of room, but that was the first place that I was able to travel with my feet up with a little bit of throttle from one end of the parking lot to the other. And I discovered the reason I felt so comfortable there was because it was a relatively short distance and I knew there was a stopping point.
Yeah, and that's when we really noticed that you were goal oriented. That you're like, if I get here, I can stop. I'm like, but you don't want to stop. You want to keep going, because getting going in the motorcycle is the hardest point. After that, it's just maintaining the same thing. Going 20 feet is the same as going 2 miles. It's just you're going that way longer, but nothing's changed in that point.
And that was hard for me to grasp. Yeah. And then that day, like you said, I started to turn and I made a big oval.
Yes, and it was beautiful, and I was so impressed. And I kept telling you, I was like, it's not a fluke. If you make 5 curves in a row without stopping, that's not a fluke. That's not the bike just kind of carried you that way. You didn't really. That
was my other internal struggle. Is that psychologically, I was not certain that I was actually doing this myself. I almost imagine that, like you said, it was a fluke, or it just happened to work out that way for me, or
which I did not. I never thought that
some magic dust sprinkled down on me, and I was able to turn the motorcycle to the left.
And I knew you were doing that. That's what I kept saying. Like, you're doing it. Why aren't you? Why are you selling yourself so short? You're doing it. You are doing this. You are learning. You're getting better every time. and every time you get more nervous and nervous. But yeah, of course we had to quit doing that parking lot because one, you were outgrowing it because it was a very short one.
It was.
Maybe 50, 60 feet long. Maybe not even that long. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It was less than 100.
It was
definitely.
less than a soccer field long.
It was because it was the soccer fields. But the other reason why I had to stop going down there is because, one, we kept running into emergency vehicles waiting there because it's kind of like a staging area for them to get going, kind of waiting for calls.
It's near our rescue team.
Yeah. So that would happen a lot. And then two, we kept running into other people learning to drive cars there, learning to drive manuals, which was awesome to see. And in fact, I think you might have gave this one young driver some confidence because she saw another female out there on a motorcycle as her silly husband was running alongside of her. I got so much exercise in this whole thing.
You did at the beginning because, and that's you also. Side note.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned earlier that I felt like I was flying, and I've said it too.
Yes.
And one of the ways I could tell that I was applying a little throttle, I could hear it obviously, but one of the ways I knew I was actually going a little faster is that you could no longer walk next to me.
Yeah, and you would realize the fact that if I was having to jog, you were going fast enough that you better put that left foot up because you're going fast enough the bike's going to stay upright. That was the other thing that I kept telling you is like, if you stuck the throttle and you weren't on the bike would just keep going. Oh. It would stay upright.
Oh, that reminds me. I'm having an issue with the throttle. I have to wear 2 different gloves.
Oh, yeah.
I have my own motorcycle gloves that I've had, for a very long time.
Yes.
And they don't have any armor really in them.
They have a little padding.
Yeah. They're like a leather, but a tight leather glove, and they're fine for being a passenger. Mm-hmm. But I've never tried to actually use a clutch or anything with them on. And then I learned that I can't clutch comfortably with them on, so I have to use your motorcycle glove on my left hand, and I cannot use your motorcycle glove on my right hand because the grip on the inner part of your thumb causes me to get stuck on the throttle, which I have another issue with in general. Whenever I get scared and I do the thing you tell me not to do, which is grab too much of the brake, I also accidentally rev the throttle, which is why I am so glad that clutch is my best friend.
Yeah, which you learn that from driving a manual is the fact that if you ever get scared, unless you're on an steep incline and you don't want to roll anymore, if something happens, pull that clutch in.
Which is my whoopee.
Yes.
The clutch is my whoopee.
Yeah. Sometimes you seem to be stuck on the revving a lot longer than I think you should be, but I'm
almost laughing at myself at that point, and then I just sort of let go because I realize and now that I'm skipping ahead a moment to say that I am doing better with the foot brake, using it to slow myself down.
Well, you're finally using it.
Yes. Which is another thing. I don't know if it's just this motorcycle or not, but there's so much give in that foot brake before it engages.
Most motorcycles, the foot brake is very spongy. I think that one's just fine. I mean, it's similar to my Vulcan. It's similar to my Zero.
Well, I'm sure I'll get more used to that.
It's just you not pushing it down as much because I don't want you to stomp on it.
Because that's my last fear is moving my feet too much.
Yeah.
I felt as if I could throw myself off balance just by moving my feet. The little bit you have to move your foot to press the foot brake or to shift gears.
Which you definitely now know that isn't. But yeah, so going back, you skipped ahead a lot. Of course, if we had wrote down a script or actually talked about what we're going to talk about, this would be much easier.
Yes, I'm so afraid that everyone's like, golly, why have they not shut up yet?
Someone's going to enjoy this. That one person.
That one viewer.
That one person after the 500 that downvoted, because those are terrible people who downvote things. I'm just thinking, just go away. Why do you have to downvote?
Now you're off topic.
Well, yeah, but I'm just, I'm excited for you on your journey. I think this is a great thing, and with us watching other people's first riding videos, you got a lot of confidence from that, a lot of stuff. So I would
have to thank so many YouTubers out there that I've only watched one video. Some perhaps I've watched 2, and then others where we've subscribed and ended up watching every video that they put out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I've met friends, like internet friends, that definitely has helped me with my confidence. And then I don't know, can you name drop? Is that a thing?
We'll name drop later.
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyways, I do want to go ahead and skip to where I am now.
Well,
I think we're running long in the tooth
no,
here.
No, we can break it up to different parts. No, because I mean you're skipping over some stuff. So the curving and all that. So
Yes.
So after that, when we started working on let's go long distances and then curve. So we had some decent results of you being able to go long distance across 2 different parking lots
and follow the curve.
And follow the curve of those parking lots, because yet again, nothing's flat in East Tennessee. Nothing's just completely straight because they build it around everything.
No, sir.
So, I had you going, around light poles, big thing. And then, of course, it's getting dark. And we also realized that her trying it dark, which is bad because now it's winter.
I don't like not being able to see the pavement. And, at this particular parking lot that we're at, it's also the parking lot I learned to drive the manual transmission car. It has lighting, but those puddles of light only go so far. And I felt as if I couldn't feel comfortable like I do during the daytime.
So we've tried to do that, because now it means that we're going to have to wait to the weekends when it's slightly warmer, hopefully, and not raining. We'll see. So your learning experience might be
but perhaps
different.
Now that I feel even more comfortable, like the other night I did ride in the dark some. And I felt more comfortable. So as I get more and more comfortable, I think things like that won't affect me so negatively anymore. I just will say that you were right. I believe I'd be light years ahead at this point if I had ridden a bicycle as a child or as a young adult. Because I feel like I'm bragging about these little minute steps that I've made that other people would be like, what in the world? She's excited that she was able to sit on the motorcycle and kick the kickstand up. What is wrong with her?
But that's the thing, is that you don't have that, and those people are lying if they're saying that this is simple stuff, because it's simple because you did it when you were 5 and you've been doing it for 10, 15, 30, 40 years. It's simple, and that's what they say. It's just like riding a bike. You don't forget. But learning to ride the bike was the hard part, the bicycle. But so you did that, and so at this point, golly, you're getting great at getting that one foot up and going,
or getting that
second,
away.
Or getting that second foot up and going, you're duck walking it less and less. I'm finally convincing you that when you do have to stop and turn around, don't be pushing with your feet the whole time. This thing has a motor in it. Give it some gas, let off that throttle a little bit, and let the bike turn around. You're doing that better, which means that now you're lasting a lot longer when you're practicing, because you're not doing your 35-point turn trying to turn around, with your feet and going reverse and stuff.
I don't always get my feet up, like up on the pegs, but a lot of times I'll just pull them up, and that way I feel prepared to slam my feet back down at any point during that curve or turn if I get off balance. And because this bike is so light, I feel like I could just pick it up over my head at any point, and that's why I haven't dropped it yet. It could get really, really low, and I can still grab it and pull it back up to an upright position. Now that you know that I can basically bench press a Honda Rebel 250, please come back for part 3 of my journey to learn to ride a motorcycle. I'm not letting him talk because he doesn't know how to say goodbye. A true Southerner. So please smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, do a thumbs up, push all the things. Don't forget to leave a comment about your journey learning to ride a motorcycle, any questions you have for me, and if you have a question for that guy, I might even let him talk. Come back next time for part 3.